Drive with host Ryan Doyle and special guest host Matt Gurney on News Talk 1010.
And we want to hear from you at Star Talk, star 8255. You can text us at 71010. Just because the election is over in the province of Ontario and the politicians that are no longer packed up their boxes, it doesn't mean that there aren't some good ideas that came out of that election, or at least a little bit beforehand. One of them has to do with the HOV lanes. You see these. They're diamond lanes, basically, where if you have more than one passenger in the car, you're currently allowed to carpool or use the lanes to get you from point A to point B a little quicker. One of the ideas that was brought forward that kind of got shelved before the election was the idea of charging people a premium to take these lanes. And not everybody is happy about the idea of having to pay, but at least if there's a choice involved, I think you might have more happy motorists than you would unhappy ones.
I don't know what it is about Toronto and Ontario in general, Ryan, where giving people the option to pay more is somehow seen as an assault on the rights of others. And we've heard this argument before. It's, private school, that's just going to be a threat to the public system. Private healthcare, it's going to be a threat to the public system. Toll lanes, it's going to be a threat to the public roads. Let me pay a little bit more to get home faster. You will get home faster because I'm going to be off the roads. We're all going to win here. You take every penny that me and all my buddies out there put into this system, we plow it right into building that downtown relief line or the Eglinton Crosstown or whatever the transit project du jour is. Let's just get it done. Let's get this place moving. We're already paying huge money every time we fill up our cars with gas, the gas tax. We know that's the case. It's not going to be enough. We need sources of revenue. Ryan, listen to this. I am volunteering to pay more. I'm saying I will step up and pay this. Why can't I?
Andy Manahan is the Executive Director of the Residential Civil Construction Alliance here in the province of Ontario. Andy, it's your group putting this conversation back on the radar. The politicians make it sound like this is something that would happen 5, 10, 15 years down the road. Could you put a timeline on it for us?
One of our suggestions is that we have the Pan Am Games happening next summer, and already the Ministry of Transportation is looking at expanding the HOV network across the 400 series highways, perhaps the Gardiner or the DVP. So once the games are over, why don't we do a hot lane or high occupancy toll lane pilot project and test it out? So in terms of a timeline, let's really get our ducks in a row, but implement it on a limited basis within about a year or so.
Andy, what would it take? We're talking about the timeline here, but what are we actually talking in terms of infrastructure, maybe even legislation or legal requirements? What would we need to do to get this thing going?
Well, we do have a brand new transportation minister, Stephen Del Duca, so hopefully this will be one of his priorities to look at, as well as the premier's, because you always need political will to make things happen, whether it's legislation or a shift in policy. Currently, as you know, we have HOV lanes that are in place, and at least for the 400 series highway, it's HOV2, which means you have a driver and a passenger. So you would probably have to change to an HOV3 like we have for these streets in the city of Toronto, which would be a driver and 2 or more passengers. Because if you go to the hot lane concept, you're going to fill up those lanes a little bit more. So in terms of the carpoolers that are out there, you'd have to up the requirements a little bit so that you keep the free flow of traffic going.
So if I did have 2 other passengers in the car, you would see that as being something that would still be free for me.
That's correct, yeah. We're not going to take away the HOV lanes, at least that's not our proposal. It's really, how do we manage traffic flow better? It's congestion relief, and if you can generate some dollars from hot lanes, that's okay as well, but this isn't like the 407 where you're generating mega dollars.
What about the idea, and as someone who's out there on the roads every day, I see this. Have you guys studied what the actual capacity of the HOV lanes is? How popular are these things as tools right now for people who do have 2 or 3 people in the car? Anecdotally, I got to say, usually they're empty while I'm stuck.
You could shoot a cannon off of them.
Yeah.
I do know that people at the Ministry of Transportation are reviewing the traffic counts on some of the major HOV lanes. There are times, maybe in peak periods, where those lanes are a little bit congested, but most of the time you're right. They're moving along pretty well. The only time you get slowed down is sometimes if there's someone maybe going 90 kilometers per hour and keeping other cars from moving ahead a little faster.
That's a whole other problem.
Yeah. What would the price tag be? Say I wanted to take an HOT lane, a high occupancy toll lane, and I was by myself. What would the working cost be?
That would have to be looked at by a team of analysts, but I can tell you the concept that's been implemented in a number of U.S. jurisdictions. They have something called dynamic pricing. So in terms of keeping traffic flowing during peak periods, you charge a higher rate per kilometer. So at midnight, it would probably be maybe a quarter, 25 cents per kilometer. During peak times, you may go up to a rate of $2 per kilometer. I'm just putting numbers out there, but I'm just trying to show you the magnitude of the change.
And what about the technology? I understand that you might not need a transponder system.
There are a number of different ways of looking at it. There are many jurisdictions in the U.S. that use gantry systems like we have on the 407. If we're doing a pilot project, I would recommend against that because installing gantries is very expensive, and if the pilot doesn't work out so well, then you've got to dismantle them. So I think a metered pilot project would be the way to go, like a transponder where you could measure the vehicle kilometers traveled. And I wouldn't allow everyone to use the system at once. I would perhaps limit it to 1,000, 2,000, or 3,000 people for a limited time trial of maybe 3 months. And that would allow those drivers, the single occupant drivers, to go into the HOT lane, or if traffic's moving, they could stay in the other lane if they got that slow driver, let's say, in the HOV lane.
Andy, we appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome.
Andy Manahan, Executive Director of the Residential Civil Construction Alliance of Ontario. There you have it, though, Matt. I mean, that's interesting. There you have